Hey folks, it's Jeff, and I'm very happy to have Clay Collins on the line with me. So Clay's a friend of mine. He's also a very, very sharp marketer, and he's actually one of my mastermind partners. He's in a mastermind group with me, and so that's how I actually initially got to know Clay. And he's got lots of great talents and skills online, but the one we want to talk about today is something that he's really good at is finding niches or more, I guess, more accurately, helping people find their niche or a niche that will work for them. And so, without any further ado, Clay, thank you very much for joining us. Very excited to be talking to you.
Jeff, it's super great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I guess what we're going to do here is, a lot of product launch formula owners have, they're just starting a new business or they're starting a new business. They've got one, but they want to go in a different direction. They're either looking for a niche or they're trying to figure out something. They've got a niche in mind and they're trying to figure out, is that a good one? Is it big enough? Is it too big? Is
hmm
it going to be profitable?
Yep.
And so I know this is something that you've got a lot of skill at, and you just conceptually have a great way of approaching it. And I know you can bring great value to them. And so I'm just sort of gonna hand it over to you and say, like, just where should we start with this?
Well, you know what? I think a good place to start is to realize that this really doesn't have to be as complicated as most people make it out to be. I think a lot of people, when they first get into internet marketing or they're looking to start their second business, they kind of lock themselves in a room and they're looking at keyword research and pay-per-click numbers and like all this data, and it quickly can become this rocket scientist thing that just gets blown way out of proportion, and it's almost like you have to resort to quantum physics to like try and figure out what kind of market to pursue online. But it really doesn't have to be that complex at all. In fact, there's a lot of ways to go about market selection that are like much better than looking at numbers. It's just much simpler. So I think, what I always like to tell people before they start looking at markets is that they really should draw, like, make a Venn diagram, if they will, at least one in their head. And in one circle, place all the things that they like to do, or at least that they're passionate about. And in another circle, kind of take stock of the things that can make them money, and then find that intersection between things that can make money and things they're passionate about. Now, that obviously is sort of it's easier said than done. So what I'm going to do is kind of walk everyone through the process of thinking about how to find a profitable, like hugely profitable online market. I have a few approaches, and before I get into them, there's actually like three or four main approaches. And before I get into them, I think one thing that people can do to really clear out the confusion is decide out of the gate whether or not their main priority is to do something that they're passionate about and they really care about, or if it's to just simply make as much money as they possibly can, because that really can clear up a lot of confusion. So I guess one approach is to start with the things that you're passionate about, and then use some of the mindsets and the frameworks that I'm going to give you to figure out which of those are going to make money, or use the things that I'm going to give you to figure out which things can make money, and then pick among those which things that you can care about. And personally, I like the latter because I like to make money, and I think it's pretty important. It's pretty important to
Right,
do that.
right. Well, it's interesting because there really are. I totally agree. There, I think there is this. On one hand, there's find something you love or do what you love and the money will follow,
hmm
and which I don't think is entirely accurate because a lot of times, I mean, like eating pizza and watching football on TV is sort of cool, but it's not going to make you too much money. But on the other hand, there is often, if often there is something you're really passionate about that can make you a ton of money, and then it can be a real joy. I mean, I love to teach about marketing,
Yeah.
and so it is a joy. But then, there is there's that group that they want to do something that neither, and of course, there's no right or wrong.
Yep.
And you can be one person you can be one way at one time and another way at the other time. But yeah, I think decide between whether you're going to go after something you're really passionate about, or if a lot of people they like marketing, they like the marketing process, or they're simply willing to say, hey, I'm willing to work on something and just make some money, because that's almost like not everyone loves their job to death, and so I mean, you could still love your business. You don't just have to necessarily love your market. So it's an interesting couple of approaches, but it sounds like the frameworks you're going to talk about are either going to enable you to find a market, or else to figure out, which of your passions you want to go after.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you were speaking to about loving to teach internet marketing, I think that's a great example, because so often it has less to do with the raw skill that you have and more about how you position that and what you attach that skill to. So teaching is a great example. You can teach all kinds of things that aren't going to make very much money. Certainly, it's an unfortunate reality that a lot of teachers in public schools don't make that much money, and then there's a lot of private tutors who make even less money. And then there's people who teach business, there are people who teach health. Certainly, one might argue that a lot of doctors, ultimately their job is to teach medicine, and they make a lot more money kind of employing that same skill set. So I think a lot of it is about how you position the talents you have and how you line those talents up with lucrative or, unfortunately, sometimes not very lucrative markets.
Absolutely. So where do we start?
All right. So the first approach that I like to use when looking for a market is simply to find out who's making money and then figure out how to do it better. I never once in my entire life have built a six-figure plus business by looking at keyword research. Every single time what I've done is I've ran into someone at a conference or a seminar or on a bus or at some sort of business meeting who did something incredible in the last 6 months in terms of income. And I didn't rip off their idea, but I saw what they were doing in their market, and that gave me an insight that allowed me to basically copy what they were doing either in a different market or to improve on what they were doing in the same market and make a lot more money. I think the best market research is the stories and the anecdotes and the intelligence that you get just by talking to people. So, for example, the other day I was talking to a friend who's a coach, and he recently he had this tiny little list. He sent out one email, and he made about 12 grand, like instantly. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I'm going to look into this market and build a list and send out something. And the market is big enough for everyone. And I made a bunch of money really quickly. That took no market research, no complicated, fancy anything. I just heard what works and improved upon it. And I think that often is the very best way to find a market, is to really have your ear to the ground, to hear what's working, and then to improve on it. There's lots of data, both in ClickBank and just frankly in the news section of newspapers about businesses that are making money. And that is ultimately my favorite way to go.
Wow. That's so. I mean, obviously that sounds really simple. It's keeping your ears open and watching for what's working. How would you look for something that's working on ClickBank? Are you just going to their marketplace and?
Yeah, you can go. What I like to do is I like to go into the ClickBank. I like to go to clickbank.com, go to their marketplace, and then you can run a search in any niche or any of those markets up there and sort by gravity. And gravity is this fancy number, and I can't even explain like what all is in there. But basically, if something has a high gravity, then it's selling well and it's converting well. And there are tons of products on ClickBank that are making lots of money, that are being marketed horribly. You just look at the sales page and you almost want to puke, frankly. And in some of those markets, they have never seen a product launch before. So, I think one thing that someone can do is they can find a market that's doing extremely well because they've seen the data on ClickBank or they've talked to someone, and just do a product launch in that market where one has never been done before. And that's a really good way to kind of clean up.
Absolutely. So, and just, we are talking about market selection here, but just my ears pricked up because I know the people listening to this, their ears pricked up when you said you learned about this sort of new market and you just went and built a list and, tested an offer. So could you just give us, the 30-second or the 15-second version of how you built the list in that market?
Yeah, the best way that I've ever found to build a list is to work with partners and joint venture partners. And I know that sounds scary, it sounds complicated, and a lot of times it sounds, frankly, less scary to do like pay-per-click and SEO and all this stuff because it feels impersonal. It feels like you can sit in front of a computer and just sort of hit some buttons, and like the internet is this machine, and if you hit the right buttons in the right order, just like leads and the list starts growing. But I found that the best way to build a list, even if you have no experience in a market, is to like just get on the phone and talk to people, especially in some of these obscure markets, who are frankly alone in that market. They've never had much interaction in any kind of like sort of convention setting. There really aren't other business people thinking there, and it's almost like a fresh of breath air, or a breath of fresh air. Spoonerism, to talk to someone who's interested in what they're doing, and it's just good old fashioned business. But that's what I like to do, and I like to just sort of, a good thing to do is just to say, I'm running this survey, and are your people interested in filling out a little survey on what they're kind of interested in, and I'll pay you, a couple $100, and if you could send your people to my survey and fill this out, I'd be, that would just be great. And oftentimes they'll do that, even if they have a list of 2, 3, 4,000. And at the bottom of the survey, I just ask them to put in their email address. And that's a really quick way to build a list without saying, without a squeeze page. And in a way that looks like giving, because in that survey you can say, hey, I just want to give away something for free and would love your thoughts on what that thing should be in this market.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Okay, so moving along, market selection, where were we at?
All right, so I guess approach number one is to find out what's working and frankly just do it better. Just clean up. Either do a product launch in that market, or find a market where there's a product that's doing well that has a fancy, a sales letter that you could really improve on, or a lead generation process that you could improve on, and just do it better. Approach number two is to find something that you're interested in, or a talent that you have, and somehow hook it up with what I consider the big four markets. And the big four markets are, this is sort of how I like to think about them because it's a lot of fun, but the big four markets are getting paid, getting laid, and not dying. And the last one is expensive passion hobby. So getting paid is really anything related to business or investing or saving or, personal finance. I'm not into giving gambling advice, but like that would be in there too. Basically anything about how to make money, how to save money, how to invest, anything like that is the getting paid market. The getting laid market is relationship advice, even marriage advice. I sort of lump that in there. Relationship advice, dating advice, marriage advice, sex advice, anything that has to do with that human need to connect with other people and have healthy relationships. The not dying market is the health market, the weight loss market, the herbal remedies, herbal supplements, anything like that, and anything on how to be cured of various conditions. And this even applies to like pet markets where you can figure out how to cure your pet of some sort of ailment. And so let's just talk about getting paid, getting laid, not dying. I find that the weight loss market online tends to be so huge because in some way it overlaps with getting paid, getting laid, not dying. We know that people who tend to look good and be fit get paid more. It's sort of the understanding, or it's believed that you're more desirable in relationships, and that you'll live longer. And that's a huge market. The last of those four is expensive hobbies. So you talk about the horse ballet or the dressage market. That's a huge market, maybe not in terms of size, but in terms of money, because in order to even own a horse, you have to be money. You have to have money, much less, teach it how to do horse ballet and that kind of thing. Another thing that would, I guess, fall in that expensive hobby category would be golf
Right.
and
Or
off-roading, that kind of thing.
yep. Scuba diving, I would think would be, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, you can hook up a lot of talents or a lot of interests to these markets. So, for example, you can teach things. If you're interested in teaching and conveying information, there's things that can be taught in all these markets. If you're interested in spirituality, certainly you can hook up spirituality to the wealth market or the business market. Law of attraction is arguably in that category. You can certainly combine, if you're interested in spirituality, just to use an example, you can combine that with relationships. That's been done over and over and over again. And certainly spirituality and health, or what I call the not dying market, that's been done to make lots of money, again, repeatedly. And one thing I've just said is that this has been done over and over and over again, and I think it's a huge myth, and I think you'll probably agree with me, but it's a huge myth and a huge misconception that if there are lots of people in a market, that it's a bad market. I won't get into a market at all, period, ever, if there's no competition, because I want to see that other people are making money in that market as well.
Absolutely agree. I know, the first market that I ever got into was, stock investing, was, telling people how to invest and trade in the stock market. And there are, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there are approximately 1 bazillion newsletters about the stock market. And, it just didn't stop me.
That's a real number, right, Jeff?
Yeah, so it's 1.1 bazillion newsletters about the stock market. And I mean, I guess when I got into it, I just didn't know any better or whatever to be worried about it. But the reality is the markets out there are big. And when there's a lot of competition, that just means there's a lot of competition you can beat.
Yep.
And you don't have to be the best. You just have to find a unique, there's this thing I call a lot of people talk about the unique selling proposition. I like to think about it online, since it is so much about connection. You were just talking about connection. Mm-hmm. I like to think about unique connection points. And that was my competitive advantage when I was publishing a stock newsletter. I published it in my voice. I mean, it was all written, but it was written in my voice. It came from me. It was from a real human, mm-hmm. and that it wasn't written to come from a corporation. And so, one, that put me ahead of everyone else that writes like they're coming from a corporation. Yep. And then two, someone could compete with me, but they couldn't compete with my personality and my voice. Damn. And I knew not everyone's going to connect with me, but I knew a lot of people, or some people, would connect with me, and that's all I needed.
Yep.
And so it's not hard to be different when you go into a crowded market. It's very, very easy to do it. Yeah. Lots of different ways.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And there's always a back door into every single market. So for example, I had this one client who was interested in behavior, in helping teachers, they were interested, I guess the large thing was they were interested in ADD. And the ADD market is pretty, frankly, large and competitive online. And if you do a search online, you have to compete with the Mayo Clinic and the National Institutes of Health, and they're like, how am I going to do this? And after a while, we figured out that they could start out. A really good way to start out was helping elementary school parents who had children that had ADD who had behavior problems. And so we cut it up that way. And the reason why I like this is that there's almost unlimited room for expansion. Once she nails the ADD for elementary school kids with behavior problems, she can back up one step and then focus on either ADD and elementary school or ADD and behavior problems, and she can drop the age category and sort of broaden that way. And then when she nails that, when she's done dominating that, she can back up and then decide whether or not she wants to dominate the entire ADD market or the entire elementary school market or the entire like behavioral problems market. And all of those are really large markets. So I like sort of sub niches embedded in huge money making markets.
Right. I've seen this. It's a way to this is very interesting where you're going. Like for example, you mentioned weight loss. And I mean, how if you wanted to tackle weight loss, you'd be going up against, Weight Watchers and everyone else. I mean, there's just so much. And you're talking about some very well-capitalized companies
Yep.
who can afford to spend a fortune on advertising and can probably afford to lose money on their advertising because they've got a long-term, they got a bigger business model. But like if you want to do like weight loss for truck drivers
Yep.
or something like that, all of a sudden you attach yourself to one of those the big four that you talked about. But you've broken it down, so now it's going to be a lot easier to reach truck drivers, and it's going to be a lot easier to target them with your message. And so this idea of attaching yourself to one of those huge markets is really cool.
Yeah, and I really love to do. I like to splice it up, and another fun way to splice things up in a way that can be hugely lucrative, and by splice I mean slice, but you can combine large markets in a way that gives you a unique advantage. So if you combined the wedding market with the weight loss market, you could do weight loss for like soon-to-be brides, or you could do, weight loss for, guys who just got divorced and are looking to go back on the, on the dating scene or something like that. So that can be a fun thing to do as well, because that can really blow up your options. Without forcing you to get too just sort of weird and obscure, so you're not like doing like, basket weaving for weight loss or, something weird like that.
For new moms.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is really cool because it goes to show you how, it's not just about the markets, but how you can. What we're talking about is taking them and making something saleable, really. You're going from just here we're talking about weight loss and niching it down, but you can go the other way and take something that's super niche, and then go towards one of the big things. Like, yep. We've seen this over and over. Like, carving wooden dolls for fun and profit.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're taking it towards making money with something that's very, very niche down. So you can go both directions with that.
Yeah. That whole like wood carving for fun and profit. I think that's an excellent opportunity to make money. If you have successfully made money doing anything in your life ever, one thing you can do is just show other people how you did it. And then you don't have to rack your brain. You can look at sample contracts or anything you've ever done before and just become like the guru for some little obscure market. And that allows you to sell your products at a much higher price than if you were selling some sort of hobby course. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's always something you can do. If you were a medical transcriptionist and you were like the best performing medical transcriptionist in your region or in for the hospital that you were working with, show other people how to do that.
Absolutely. So how about like if someone's sitting listening and they've got an idea for a market or a niche, how can they figure out whether it goes? Is it gonna sell? Is it gonna work?
Yeah.
Or even just stepping back even beyond, is it gonna sell? But is it gonna work? Period.
Yeah. That's a great question. One thing I like to do is write the sales letter before the product ever even exists, and just get some and start throwing some pay-per-click traffic at it. The point isn't to make money with that pay-per-click campaign, because pay-per-click is hard, but it's a great way to get instant traffic and start sending it at a sales page and see if you have something that could potentially convert. There's actually some legal implications with that, and I'm not an attorney and I can't give legal advice, but that's called dry testing, and it has to be done in a very specific way. So let's take that off the table and just give another suggestion. Another thing you can do is, instead of throwing that traffic to a sales letter, you can throw it to an opt-in page to build your list, like a squeeze page, and offer some sort of free report and see what that opt-in rate is. And I find that if I get around like a 20% opt-in rate for cold traffic that doesn't know who I am, doesn't know what I'm doing, then it usually means that there's interest there, that people are willing to comply, they're willing to enter in their email address, and they want the information that I have. And that's a really, I think, important metric, especially when you combine it with looking at the prices of other products in that market or similar products.
Cool. Have you ever done like one of the things all honesty, I haven't been going after any new markets in the last couple of years. I've got my business is pretty dialed in. Primarily teaching internet marketing. I got some other niche stuff, but primarily internet marketing. So I haven't been going out researching a lot of niches. But I still think it's like all of us. I mean, we're all business people and marketers, and it's hard to not look at stuff and say, oh yeah, there we go. There's an idea. There's an idea. And one of the things I like to do is go, like I like magazines in general. I get like lots of different magazines, like all kinds of subscriptions to all kinds of weird stuff. But I mean, it's just sort of funny. If you ever looked at like the total gamut of everything I get, it's just there's no way anyone could ever figure me out because it's just all over the board. But in any case, I love going into like a really good periodical store, a magazine store, and just looking at the racks of magazines because it's amazing. Like I know just in like guitar, if you
Yep.
go look at a really good magazine store, they will literally have, I'm going to say 15, possibly more different guitar magazines and periodicals. Everything from playing heavy metal to playing acoustic to playing bluegrass to repairing, to buying vintage guitars, to how to play, to profiles of famous guitarists. I mean, just it's amazing, and it's like there's so many magazines out there.
Yep.
And do you ever do anything like that, or look at that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there are some online resources that you can look at that just show like all the magazines that are available, and you can search and see whether or not a magazine is available on a given topic. Another thing you can do is you can go into Amazon.com and search for the best-selling magazines by category and kind of see what sort of the hot markets are. But like I heard Ed Dale say something that was really funny. He said if you want to make a small fortune, take a large fortune and start a magazine. And I think the point he was getting at is that it is difficult. It is difficult to survive in the magazine business. And if there is a magazine on a topic and that magazine like is in existence today, then that's a solid niche market. Like hands down, no question about it. It means that there has to be advertisers that are willing to spend money on that thing, and it usually means that like they can produce some sort of gear guide, or just that there's money to be spent there. So yeah, that's a really good indicator of whether or not a market is healthy. Another one is whether or not there's a trade association. There are online indexes of trade associations, and there's some weird stuff that pops up in there. Like the Association of like Railroad Disassemblers, or just weird stuff like that. And that's another really good place to look at. If you want to see if there's a healthy market that's willing to spend money on stuff.
How about like, do you look at AdWords stuff, or who's paying for clicks? Do you have anything you do like with that?
Yeah, that thing is kind of, I don't have like a stiff like a metric there where it's like, well, if there's more than four people advertising and stuff, but like I like to see clicks that are selling for quite a bit of money. So if there's a market where clicks are going for like $4 or $5, that's awesome because obviously if someone's paying that much per lead, hopefully unless they're stupid, they're making at least that much money back on average per visitor. So yeah, I'll definitely look at that. I like to see that area full. I like to see people advertising all the way down the side and on the top. But is as long as there's like three or four or five advertisers, that's good. I like to see, I guess I like to see at least three. Another indication of a healthy market is that there are other people online who have affiliate programs because I like to be able to just sort of snoop around. If someone has an affiliate program, you can call them up and legitimately say, hey, I'm thinking about being an affiliate for your product. What's the conversion rate on your sales page? If I send traffic to this, I want to kind of get an estimate of how much I'm going to get per visitor I send to you. And how you can just sort of casually ask, how is this product doing? I'm not talking about ripping them off. I'm just talking about like figuring out if that market is doing pretty good or if there's someone in that market that's figured it out. And that can be really helpful information.
Yeah, that's golden. Another thing that you can do is even if you can't reach them or they don't want to give you that data, I mean, you can start sending you can join their affiliate program,
Yep.
start sending traffic and start tracking it.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
you look how much traffic you sent them, and you can you look how many sales you've made. You know what their conversion rate is. You know what their visitor value is,
Yep.
and bingo, you got all kinds of data.
Yep.
And you can even build a list while I mean, go ahead, build a list, start building a list, then send the traffic from that list to the affiliate site. Track what their visitor value is. Look at it. I mean, is there a way to market better? I mean, now you know their visitor value
Hmm.
and what the traffic's worth. Then you can look at what it's costing you to get that traffic. You're getting all kinds of data there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm gonna say this. Probably all of the people who've been around marketing or internet marketing are gonna roll their eyes because I'm gonna say something that's so obvious, but it's something that's made me a lot of money. So I'm just gonna share it. If you find an affiliate program that you like, and it's making you money, and you kind of like what's going on, there's no reason why you can't go from making 50% on that sale to making 100% and doubling your profit by making your own product. So find something to sell it, and then double your profit by making your own product. That's a sweet way to go.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean, if you can send traffic I mean, if you basically put a squeeze page up, drive back traffic to your squeeze page, build a
Yep.
list, then use that list to sell someone's affiliate deal. And even if what you're making on affiliate commissions is only paying what it's costing you to build, to drive traffic and build your list, you're basically building a list for free. And then you roll out your product, and like you said, all of a sudden you're getting 100%. So very, very powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, what else? What are we forgetting here?
All right. Well, I think one thing that I should mention, just because it's just kind of fun. I sat down and I was thinking about, just sort of wrap up this approach number two. I was thinking about like just sort of different markets and how to combine them. And I was thinking about the sort of the money market and the health market. And I was like, go, what are you going to do? It's sort of like like Mad Libs or some sort of extemporaneous exercise. Like, all right, if I were going to combine sort of the money market with the health market, I would do something like how to save. I would come up with a product that had this headline: how to save thousands of dollars on healthcare even if you don't have insurance. And that would be a product on like medical tourism. Like, I think that could totally sell. Like, what hospitals to go to which have the best, like, I don't know, like, you know plastic surgery stuff, who knows, in like
Hmm.
Mumbai or whatever.
Hmm.
And then I was like, go, making money and the dating market. And that could be a product on like how to grow old and rich with your spouse. And that could be a product on investing for couples, or a product on how to marry a rich dude or something like that, or a rich woman.
Hmm.
But like you can kind of do this forever.
Right. Or, something that can be almost the same offer, and you could just change the offer with the sales pitch. Like the first one you mentioned, like with the medical tourism, it was like it could be how to get paid to travel.
Yeah.
That you're like, if you're really into travel, here's how to travel and actually make it pay for your travel.
Yeah.
Or if you're from California, how to get paid to travel, and just stop being a California resident. Don't have to pay 10% state income tax, and now you're traveling. You're saving 10% of your income tax, and you're traveling, and you're traveling for free.
Yeah.
Or what I mean, often it's not so much the market, but it's like what angle can you take with with your sales message? How can you set it up?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess my last approach is just sort of kind of like the good old hard way of doing this, which is where I'll just sit down and I'll just like write down a list of everything that like I could possibly think of doing. I'll literally just keep a notepad with me wherever I go, in like those Moleskine notebooks, and just write like thing after thing after thing after thing. And I'll do this for like a couple days. And maybe I'll go to a magazine rack, or maybe and write down ideas, or maybe I'll go to a mall and just sort of just walk around the mall and kind of see what's there and see what's selling. Or I'll go to Walmart and just like sort of listen to what people are talking about, and really kind of get tuned to what's going on, what's going down on the ground in the lives of like just everyday consumers, and and then I'll take that list and I'll analyze it in terms of demand, market quality, and speed to market factors. So I can kind of break down what's going on there. When I'm looking at demand for something, like whether or not people are going to buy, I look at three main factors, and the first one is just something I look at casually. I don't stress out about it a lot, but the first thing I look at is search volume. So I'll just type in like keyword tool in Google, and I'll go to it's like the AdWords external keyword tool, and I'll just look at whether or not there are people searching for for what I have to sell. And there's no like cutoff number there, but generally I like to see at least 100,000 people searching for stuff for all the keywords I'm interested in combined. So I don't need one keyword that's getting that kind of traffic. I just want to make sure that like combined, there's that kind of interest available on kind of the general market.
Hmm. Hmm.
The second thing is, like we talked about earlier, AdWords. I want to make sure people are advertising on that in some form or another. Like, it doesn't matter if it's just like going to eBay or something where there isn't necessarily a sales page. I just want to make sure that people are advertising on those keywords, sort of in general. The next factor is competition. I won't get in a market if there isn't some form of competition at all. And the last thing I'm interested in, which I really think is kind of the most important thing, and that is I want to make sure that the people who would be potentially interested in buying this thing are proven internet buyers. That demographic has proven that it will buy online. So, there are certainly some age demographics where like, the prospective buyer doesn't have a credit card, or they're living in a place, or they speak a language, or they are of an age where they just don't use technology, or they never used it. And I'm not interested in that. But then there are some markets, like again, like weight loss is a great example where it is, or the guitar market where it's just been proven over and over and over again that people are willing to pay for stuff in that market. They're willing to pay high prices, and they're just cool with that. There's just no question at all that these people will buy stuff online.
Cool. So, Clay, I don't think I ever told you this story, but like this is a crazy one that I probably try not to repeat too often. But like when I first learned about information marketing, it was actually I bought this. Well, it really wasn't an ebook; it was a floppy disk. It was way back in the '90s,
Oh
and
my gosh.
you probably don't remember.
Apple IIc or something like
You
that.
probably never knew what floppy disks
I
were.
had one. They're like 5.25 inch or something like
Yeah, well,
that.
it was actually the 3.5 inch
Okay.
hard. So it wasn't quite that. It was like
It's the
two
hard
years more.
floppy.
Yeah. So, and I bought this for $99.50.
Wow.
This product that taught me about not internet. It was about information marketing, and
Wow.
and at that time I was studying the stock market for all day long, like 8, 10 hours a day studying, just crazy. And I had been for like a couple of years because the stock market's a complex thing and you can study it for as long as you want. And so I was studying the stock market, but then I got this floppy disk and it talked about information marketing, and it all made sense to me. I'm like, this would work. It would absolutely. I just logically, it's like people pay for information. I could see that. I mean, I knew the Wall Street Journal had been published for 100+ years, and so people were paying for the Wall Street Journal. So I knew conceptually people paid for information. So this idea of information marketing made 100% sense to me. So, but I'm like, what? I wonder what market what could I publish about? And I didn't even know the word niche back then, or niche. I didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah, how do you say that? Which way is
Yeah,
it?
right. I always used to say niche, but now I've got so many people in the UK buying my stuff, I'd say niche. So anyways, I'm like, I would literally like, I'd be studying the stock market for 8 or 10 hours, and then when I'd go to lay down in bed, I'd like pick up I'd printed it out, this floppy disk book thing, and I'd be reading. I'm like, gosh, this is awesome. But what can I publish about? And the next day I'd get up and I'd study the market for like 8 or 10 hours, and then I'd go lay down in bed. I'm like, oh, what can I possibly publish about? What? And it sounds funny, but it was 2 years. It
Wow.
took me to figure out what I could publish about. And it was literally, it was 94 when I bought that floppy disk, and it was 96 when I started publishing. And so anyone out there who's struggling, well, A, don't be like me. B, it's just not, don't, just because it took me 2 years doesn't mean it should take you 2 years. It should take you 2 days.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. You can test it. We've already talked about some ways to test it. You can do research that back in the 90s you couldn't do keyword research or anything like that. But I know like one of the things that, and this sort of goes beyond, I think, that maybe the topic we're talking about, but I think it's germane here, and I'd like to hear your opinion because you've been in a lot of different markets. And that's one of the things that held me back was I thought, well, I just don't know enough about this market. I'm not an expert. Even though I spent like 4,000 hours over the last 2 years studying this stuff, I'm not enough of an expert to actually start creating products and publishing. So how does someone know when they know enough?
Oh man, like that is one of the two things that I think really. There's a lot of things actually. There's no end to the things people will do to sabotage themselves from like actually making this thing work. Not thinking you're an expert is, or not thinking that other people will perceive you as an expert and think you have to like go out and get a degree first. Like that's one. The other thing is like spending like a bazillion years making your product, like maybe spending 2 years locked in some sort of like basement writing some 500-page tome that you think is going to be the definitive guide to whatever. That's another thing that holds people back. And another thing is like spending like $5,000 on some like fancy website that may or may not convert for you. I don't know. But like on the expert thing, how do you know? I think if you can help people out If people repeatedly come to you and you have something to say about that topic, then you have something to say. And even if you're not an expert, you can go out and interview all the experts in your market and turn that into a product that can potentially sell really well. Because experts aren't experts unless someone's asking them for their advice. So honestly, I think if you are passionate passionate enough to attempt producing a product on a topic, then you can market yourself as an expert on that topic, and you have something of value to provide. I genuinely believe that. The majority of the people who have had a huge impact on me and on most people I know aren't people who are light years ahead of them. They're people who are just a couple steps beyond them and who are kind of reaching back and helping pull someone else just a couple steps forward. And as long as you can pull someone a couple steps forward, then you have something of value to provide.
Right. There's a saying that I taught the people that went through my product launch manager course, and that saying is, "In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king."
Yeah.
And it's like you don't have to be the world's expert. And I guarantee you, every book you've got on your shelf, none of those books were written by the expert that knew more than everything. Usually the guy that knows more than everyone and knows everything, he's too busy like just researching, and he can't be bothered writing a book or whatever, creating a video or an audio or whatever. So you have to know a little bit more than the next guy, and you've put it so well. You have to be able to pull some people along. The reality is in any market, 95% of the people are newbies.
Yep.
It's like we all started, no matter what we're talking about, we all started as newbies. When it came like walking, okay, being able to walk across the room without falling flat on your face, at one point we were all newbies at walking,
Yep.
And it's like that playing guitar. Most people are newbies because everyone has to start as a newbie. And only certain people progress beyond being that newbie guitar player. So, yeah, you don't have to be a world-class expert. Now, there is an other side of the coin. There's this phrase, "fake it till you make it," and I'm not a huge fan of that. It's sort of contradictory, but especially in this make money niche and this make money online niche, there's a lot of people that don't have a freaking clue. I remember one time being on stage at an internet marketing event, and there's about 5 or 6 of us up there, and it was a Q&A, so I was just part of this Q&A panel, or no, it was a hot seat panel, and all these people would come up and talk about the offer that they were, the product they were creating, the offer they were putting together, and this was just happened to be a seminar that had a lot of people that wanted to sell stuff in the internet marketing niche, the make money online niche. And there's 4 people in a row came up, and every one of them wanted to sell a list building course.
Ooh.
And not a single one of them actually had a list.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, time out. This is just complete BS. You guys, list building isn't that hard. You should go figure out how to build a list before you try to teach it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm contradicting what we just said, but I think if you're in an area where you can do someone harm, like you're going to jeopardize their livelihood, or jeopardize their health, or jeopardize what's going on inside their brain, then you have an obligation that you can't just be putting out garbage. You got to put out quality stuff. You have to at least do some basic research.
Yep.
Get your research right. Know that you're teaching good material so that people are going to have results when they take your material and put it to use.
Yeah. I guess what I'm speaking to is a situation where, I had this one client, lost a bunch of weight, a lot of weight, to their credit, it was hard work and they did it. And they were wondering whether or not they needed a PhD or some sort of degree to be selling an ebook about their personal weight loss journey and what they did and how they used kettlebells and things like that. And my answer to them was no, I think you can tell people what you did. And the reason why I said that with such confidence was because I kind of had this experience with my dad. There's no way he'll be listening to this. So my my dad for the longest time needed to lose weight, and he had read every book by every PhD and did all the programs. But the thing that finally got him to the gym wasn't a book by some sort of PhD who somehow like had 5 more PhDs than the guy that wrote the previous book that who only had 1 PhD. That wasn't what got him to go. What got him to go was someone giving very, very boring advice, but it was simplified. They had step-by-step charts to give to him, and they had a compelling story that convinced my dad that he could do it too, because this other person did it. He came from a similar background. He had a hook. And so he motivated my dad to do what my dad otherwise would not do. So if sometimes the value doesn't have to do with having like remarkably better information. Sometimes you can give the same information that everyone else is giving, but if you can do it in a way that gets people to actually take action, if you can combine it with a coaching program where you're providing accountability and calling people up and making sure they follow through, if you can do anything like that, and help people produce real results in their life, that can have tremendous impact and value, and you don't need an expert to do a lot of those things.
Absolutely agree. So Clay, this has been awesome. So just first of all, I'd like you to do 2 things. If you have anything we forgot here you wanted to mention, or any concluding words, and also you got to tell people where to find more information about what you're doing.
I guess I want to conclude with a little advice, or a little, some tips, some things I like about market quality, and what I personally look for when I want to just cinch that deal on whether or not to get into the market. And that is, one, I like evergreen markets. I won't sell stuff that's like dependent upon it being summertime. So I would never sell like swim trunks or sandals if I had a store. I like stuff that's always in demand, where there's always a need. I also like stuff where there's a high lifetime value of the customer. So if someone buys that product, it's likely that someone who spends $100 with me will end up spending $1,000 or $2,000. I like being able to have a back end. And I like products where I can sell information. Of course, I think the information product business is, and there are lots of people making money in e-commerce, but personally, I like selling information. And I like stuff where I can get a product done in no more than a month. I really don't like spending more than a month creating a product, and so those are my criteria. And if people want to find out, if they want to check out my blog or whatever, I got a bunch of nonsense online. They can go to projectmojave.com. So it's PROJECTMOJAVE, spelled like Mojave.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Clay. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Jeff.
High value, and we covered some great ground here.
Sweet. Take care, Jeff.
Okay, you too.
All right, bye.